Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. How's Eddie Frederick?
So glad you can join us. The current DPP in Jamaica chides a former deputy DPP for using official letterhead to perform a private matter. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 20th June 2023. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. The recent revelation that a former Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in Jamaica used their official letterhead to assist an individual with a criminal background in obtaining a gun license has sparked strong condemnation from the Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn. The DPP has expressed her wrath and disapproval regarding this matter. More in this CVM Live news item with Natalia Clark.
The former Deputy Director of Public Prosecution, Dirk Harrison, finds himself at odds with the current head of the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions, ODPP, Paula Llewellyn, over the use of the ODPP's letterhead in recommending a convicted criminal for the renewal of a gun license. The controversy arose after Harrison defended his actions, claiming that using the ODPP's letterhead was warranted and comparable to how professionals such as pastors, police officers, or school principals write letters based on their official capacity. However, DPP Llewellyn swiftly refuted Harrison's claim, asserting that the ODPP's primary responsibility is solely focused on prosecuting criminal matters before the courts of Jamaica. She emphasizes it is not within the ODPP's mandate to issue letters of recommendation for personal endeavors. In a release issued on Thursday, DPP Llewellyn made it clear that such letters should only bear personally prepared letterheads, in Harrison's case, indicating his capacity as attorney at law. DPP Llewellyn maintains she had no knowledge of the specific letter sent to the Firearms Licensing Authority until recently, as it was neither discussed nor approved by her during her tenure as the incumbent DPP. She says had she seen it, she would not have approved it. Furthermore, she highlights the ODPP is a public office with critical public functions, unlike lawyers in private practice or school principals, and decisions made by her office can significantly impact one's reputation. Therefore, she urges prosecutors to exercise great care when operating under the office's name. DPP Llewellyn went on to condemn the act of issuing the recommendation letter to the FLA, stating it is inappropriate for any Crown Counsel or Deputy DPP, whether in their private or public capacity, to recommend a convicted person to an agency outside of their work process. The individual in question had their original gun permit withdrawn after their firearm was stolen from their car at a party in Montego Bay, St. James. The controversy surrounding the recommendation letter raises questions about the appropriate use of the ODPP's resources and the potential influence it may have on personal matters outside the realm of criminal prosecutions. Natalia Clark, CVM Live.
BPTT intends to invest over US $700 million in Trinidad and Tobago in 2023. TTT News has more.
President David Campbell said the company is cautiously optimistic about TNT's energy future, noting that this country has proven resources that are well understood in the shallow water provinces. He added that there are a number of world-class motivated operators already investing to develop these resources into existing infrastructure. But Mr. Campbell said BPTT believes there is strong potential for more discoveries in the deep water acreage, as several deep water areas have ongoing appraisal activity after recent discoveries.
We're also looking at the potential of resources in the deep water, as I've mentioned, and partnering differently to unlock total deep water resources, both with Woodside in our Calypso project development and with our friends Shell in the deep water and Deepwater Round that we're currently progressing with the government. And hopefully we'll hear results of that shortly.
Mr. Campbell added that BPTT will also continue its work in shallow water acreage, which he said remains a tremendous potential.
To unlock the potential that we see in the Columbus Basin, and that means going after the resources in our shallow water acreage and in building a new acreage, if that's offered by the government in future shallow water bid rounds. Our Cassia Sea facility, one of the largest and most complex facilities ever installed offshore Trinidad, is helping us to unlock low-pressure gas resources that would otherwise have been left in the ground as stranded resources.
He recalled that BPTT invested close to US $3.4 billion in TNT between 2018 and 2022. But he said BPTT was able to secure the US $700 million in 2023 because it has been able to articulate the future potential for business in Trinidad and Tobago.
In the meantime, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund has come under a microscope, with former Central Bank Governor Jawala Rambaran saying a loss incurred in 2022 should disturb us all. However, the Finance Minister of Trinidad and Tobago disagrees. One economist weighed in on the matter. More from TV6's Nicole M. Ramani.
Dr. Atz believes the minister is right. The loss of US $913.5 million is further described as a grave fiscal irresponsibility by former Central Bank Governor Jawala Rambaran. However, economist Dr. Atz tells us that the finance minister was not wrong.
The minister is correct, and in the Monday Express, another colleague and myself essentially endorsed the minister's comments yesterday that what has happened with the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is not unusual, and there was no real need to panic, not just yet.
Mr. Rambaran, via a statement, also said the Rowley-led PNM government continues to show that their hands have not been blessed to create wealth. But Dr. Atz says there are things people need to consider.
When you have unforeseen circumstances that significantly impact on your revenue streams, such as what happened in COVID-19, you have an emergency fund, so to speak, a rainy day fund, so to speak, no pun intended, given the heavy rainfalls that we've had over the last 48 hours or so. So I think that's the first point of context that we need to have. And because the fund really is based on income flows that may be volatile from time to time, you will see some volatility.
Dr. Atz believes there is no need for hysteria.
And coming in with the surplus that the minister would have enjoyed towards the last quarter of last year because of rising prices in the energy sector, he would have made some additional deposits into the fund. So I think the headline of the $900+ million US loss, I think, while it may be the case, and as I said, I've not looked at the report in detail, that may be the case, but the net impact, I think, from what the minister has reported in his statements yesterday, the market has rebounded sufficiently in terms of our investment portfolio in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to have reduced that loss of $900+ million.
At a news conference on Monday, the finance minister told the media that since 2023, the fund is at the same value it was in 2015 when the PNM came into power. As of June 9th, he said, the fund's net asset value was US $5.466 billion. Nicole M. Romani, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Practical measures for increasing access to finance for women-led enterprises was highlighted in the 4th edition of the Caribbean Development Bank's CDB President's Chat at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College in St. Lucia. An all-female panel of high-level decision-makers from regional and international financial institutions joined the bank's president, Dr. Hyginus Jean Leon, for the solution-oriented discussion. Zane Romulus of the DBS News World filed this report.
The 2023 President's Chat focused on the theme access to finance for women, in particular women-owned and women-led MSMEs. The event featured an all-female panel together with the president of the CDB, Dr. Hyginus Leon. The dialogue comes against a backdrop of increasing efforts to address factors limiting access to resources for women-owned micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, according to the International Finance Corporation, the IFC. The IFC has reported that women are constrained by factors such as lack of collateral, inadequate financial infrastructure, the high cost of funding, and non-financial barriers such as harmful gender norms and limited access to business information and networks.
You cannot drive development for tomorrow based upon the model of yesterday, which is that governments own, governments lead, and governments are being required to drive development. And so we think it is equally wrong to believe that private sector will do all the things that I said government did. But what we think is the more promising route going forward is one of a new type of partnership, a partnership between the public and the private sector.
Panelists acknowledge that increasing access to affordable and adequate finance remains stymied given persistent barriers which women experience. They share their personal and institutional experience and approaches that have gathered success in the Caribbean and other regions.
Far too often, ladies sit there and they say, I don't think I'm going to manage. I don't think I'm going to get through. This is not going to work out for me. Because we talk about there being a stigma and women being marginalized, but women marginalize themselves because we don't think that we can do it either. We don't think we're going to be successful, but we actually can be.
You need to have a full understanding of the pain points of women entrepreneurs today in those regions in accessing finance and their behaviors with money and finance today in order to be able to understand what is the kind of program that you need to put forward. And then is to kind of create incentive and maybe a supporting environment for financial institutions to create intentional programs for women.
The CDB president has indicated that the bank intends to reposition itself as well as scale up financing to its borrowing member countries in an effort to meet the sustainable development goals of the region. For the DBS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew will become the new chairman of the OECS Authority when it meets in St. Kitts and Nevis for its 73rd meeting of the sub-regional body. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
Sunday, 18th June, opening ceremony will kickstart a week of activities held on the theme Vision, Integration, Sustainability as the sub-region commemorates the 42nd anniversary of the founding of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, when its leaders signed the Treaty of Bastia on the ground floor of the government quarters on Church Street. According to Prime Minister Drew, the authority will consider several pressing matters and certain decisions will have to be made.
I had the opportunity to sit with the Director General, Dr. Didicus, and where we went through a number of critical things. And in looking at the agenda, we are looking at energy, violence in the region, and so forth. And so how we can reach regional positions with respect to that. So in broad terms, we have not publicly publicized it, but I can say that those, to me, would be some critical matters on the agenda for us to look at. Because there are some regional organizations that managed by the OECS. We have embassies that we look at. How can the OECS increase its footprint with respect to that? And the issue of energy security, what is the approach of the OECS? With respect to the violence, what is the approach of the OECS? With respect to the judiciary and our legal system, what is the approach of the OECS as a collective? So in essence, we are looking at these critical matters that are coming to the agenda of the OECS. So it's an extensive agenda because of when we meet and we are going to be dealing. But for my discussions with the DG, these are some significant areas to be. And the leaders and the representatives would be here. We really need this meeting to make some critical decisions with respect to regional institutions and our approach regionally in dealing with a number of these issues.
Also to be at the meeting are St. Kitts and Nevis' Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Denzel Douglas, OECS Director General, Dr. Didicus Jules, and ECCB Governor, Mr. Timothy Antoine. Glenn Bart reporting for Eskin Newsline.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.